I just said her name in front of the entire academy, and the room has gone so quiet I can hear the chandelier crystals clicking against each other in the draft from the open windows. The Selection Gala. The night when fourth-year students at the Aurelian Military Academy formally declare their field partnerships for the final campaign practicum, the assignment that determines career placement, guild ranking, and political trajectory for the rest of your life. You step to the podium, you speak the name of the person you've chosen to partner with, and the choice is binding, irrevocable, entered into the Academy's records and countersigned by the Commandant. Every person in this hall expected me to say Celia Ashmore, the popular girl, student council president, top of the social rankings, the woman who, for 3 years, has been positioned as my obvious, inevitable, practically preordained partner. I said, Nadine Voss. And now 300 people are staring at me like I've lost my mind, because Nadine Voss is the woman the Academy calls the possessive beauty, the girl who follows me, who watches me, who once pinned a classmate to a wall by the collar for touching my shoulder during a sparring exercise. The girl the student body avoids. The girl the administration has formally counseled for boundary violations. The girl who sits alone at every meal in the same seat, facing the same direction, toward wherever I happen to be. Celia is standing in the front row. Her face is perfectly still. She's good at that. The composed mask, the camera-ready neutrality that makes people think she's graceful under pressure rather than calculating how to manage the damage. But her eyes are doing something I've only seen once before, in a life that hasn't happened yet. They're measuring. I need to tell you why I said Nadine's name. Not the whole story, not yet. Just enough so you understand that what I did at that podium wasn't impulsive. It was the most deliberate decision I've ever made, informed by 31 years of a life I've already lived and died in, and the knowledge that the woman everyone expects me to choose is the reason I died. But first, right now, the podium. The silence, because the present is where the pressure is, and the pressure is what's going to force the past out of me piece by piece. Must the Commandant, a silver-haired woman named General Aldane, who has overseen every selection gala for the past 20 years, is looking at me from the judges' table, not with disapproval, with interest. She's seen 300 of these declarations, and mine is the first one that's produced total silence. Cadet Ashford, she says, please confirm your selection. Nadine Voss. The selection is binding and irrevocable. Do you understand? Yes. She stamps the ledger. The sound is like a gunshot in the quiet room. It's done. My name and Nadine's, linked in ink, in the Academy's permanent records. Now the room starts to move. Whispers first. The low, buzzing frequency of 300 people processing something unexpected. Then louder conversations. I can hear fragments. The possessive beauty? What about Celia? Is this a joke? He's throwing away his career. I step off the podium, and across the room, standing against the far wall where she always stands, at the edge, in the shadows, where she can see everything without being in the center of anything, Nadine Voss is looking at me. She's not smiling. She's not crying. She's doing the thing she does when she's overwhelmed. Going completely still, like a person trying to hold water in their hands by not moving a single muscle. Her dark eyes are wide, her lips are pressed together, and her right hand is gripping her left wrist so hard her knuckles are white, which is what she does instead of reaching for me in public, because she learned a long time ago that reaching for people gets you labeled. I hold her gaze. I nod once, and something in her expression cracks, not breaks, cracks. A fissure in the composure. The tiniest movement of her mouth, not a smile. Permission, like she's giving herself permission to believe this is actually happening. Now, let me tell you about the first life. I'll give you the pieces in the order they matter, not the order they happened. Because some things only make sense when you know what comes after. And the thing that came after everything is that I died at 31 on the floor of a burning building, and the last thing I saw was Nadine's body shielding mine from a collapsing beam. And the last thing I heard was Celia's voice from outside the building saying, "Is it done? Is it done?" 3 words, delivered in the flat, practical tone of someone confirming the completion of a task. Not a scream of horror, not a cry for help, a status check, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Well, let me go back to the pieces. In my first life, I chose Celia at the selection gala. Everyone did. meaning everyone in my position, with my social standing and my career ambitions, would have chosen Celia Ashmore. She was the optimal selection, highest social capital, best political connections. Her family's military service record opened doors that talent alone couldn't touch. Choosing Celia was choosing a future. Nadine was there in my first life too. Same wall, same shadows, same dark eyes tracking me across the room. I didn't look at her. I said Celia's name and the hall applauded, and Nadine left before the reception, and I didn't notice because I wasn't looking. The partnership with Celia was, by every external measure, a success. We graduated top of the practicum. We were assigned to the same command unit. We rose through the ranks together, her connections opening doors, my tactical ability performing well enough to justify the access her name provided. By 26, I was a senior field commander. By 28, I was being mentioned for a directorship. Celia managed our trajectory the way she managed everything, with careful, invisible precision. She decided which social events we attended, which alliances we cultivated, which rivals we avoided, and which opportunities we pursued. I didn't mind. I was a tactician, not a politician, and having someone who understood the political landscape navigate it on our behalf felt like a natural division of labor. What I didn't understand, what took me years to see, was that Celia wasn't navigating on our behalf. She was navigating on hers. Every door she opened wider for herself than for me. Every connection she cultivated with her name in the primary position and mine in the auxiliary. Every promotion I received, she framed to our superiors as a product of our partnership, which positioned her as co-architect of my success, making herself indispensable while ensuring that my achievements were never entirely my own. I was the engine. She was the brand. And by the time I understood the distinction, the brand had grown so large that removing it would have meant dismantling everything. Meanwhile, Nadine. In my first life, Nadine was a solitary operator. She'd been assigned a partner at the gala, a reluctant cadet who'd been paired with her because no one else would accept the selection. And the partnership had dissolved within 6 months when the cadet requested a transfer, citing interpersonal incompatibility. The real reason, which the cadet told everyone who would listen, was that Nadine was suffocating. She monitored his training schedule, corrected his tactical errors without being asked, and once confronted a superior officer who had given him an unfairly low evaluation. The parallels to the academy gossip were obvious. Possessive, boundary violating, too much. The cadet's account reinforced the narrative that Nadine was someone to avoid, and by the time we graduated, she was as isolated as the academy could make a person without formally expelling them. She graduated alone. She was assigned to a remote garrison, the military's version of a filing cabinet for people it didn't know what to do with. She served there for 6 years, quietly, without complaint. And the garrison's performance metrics during her tenure were the highest in its history. No one noticed. Garrisons don't have brands. I noticed. Or rather, I noticed in retrospect, after the fire, after the 3 words, after the end. I noticed when it was too late to do anything with the noticing, and the noticing turned into the specific agony of understanding that the person you overlooked was the one who was trying to save you the entire time. Because here's what Nadine did in my first life. While I was building a career inside Celia's architecture, she tracked Celia's financial connections, independently, without authorization, without my knowledge. Starting in our 5th year out of the academy, Nadine began documenting irregularities in the command structure that Celia was building, specifically my financial flows between Celia's family network and military contract allocations that I was approving as field commander. Celia was laundering procurement contracts through my command authority. My name, my rank, my tactical reputation, all of it was being used to authorize military purchases from suppliers connected to the Ashmore family's business network. The purchases were legitimate on paper. The pricing was inflated by 15 to 25%. The markup was being funneled back to the Ashmore family through a series of intermediary accounts. I was the signature. Celia was the architect. And Nadine, the possessive beauty, the woman everyone avoided, was the only person in the entire military who was paying close enough attention to my career to notice that something didn't add up. She tried to warn me, twice. In my first life, she tried twice. The first time was a letter sent to my command office marked personal. I received it, saw her name, and set it aside. I was busy. Celia had scheduled a command review that afternoon. The letter sat on my desk for 3 days before I opened it. It contained a financial summary, 3 pages, supplier names, contract numbers, pricing comparisons, and a timeline showing the correlation between Celia's family network and the command purchases I'd been authorizing. At the bottom, in Nadine's careful handwriting, "I know you don't want to hear from me, but someone is using your name and you deserve to know." I showed the letter to Celia. I showed it to Celia because I trusted her and because the accusations seemed impossible. And because the person making them was the possessive beauty, the woman everyone agreed was unstable. And surely the simpler explanation was that Nadine's fixation had curdled into paranoia. Celia read the letter. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "This is sad, honestly. She's been obsessing over you for years, and now she's manufacturing conspiracies to insert herself back into your life." I believed her. I filed the letter and didn't respond. The second time was in person. Nadine came to my command office 8 months later. She'd traveled from her garrison 3 days' journey without authorization. She was technically AWOL. She stood in my office doorway and said, "Please, just look at the contracts yourself. Don't ask Celia. Don't tell Celia. Just look." I told her she needed to return to her garrison before she faced disciplinary action. She looked at me with an expression I didn't understand then, but understand now, the look of someone who has exhausted every legitimate channel and is watching the last door close. "I'll go," she said, "but I need you to know, whatever happens next, I was trying." She left. I reported her unauthorized visit to the command office because protocol required it. The report went into her file. Another mark against the possessive girl who couldn't let go. 14 months later, the building burned. The fire happened at the command compound during a late-night review session. Celia and I were in the records office. The official investigation would later determine that the fire was caused by an electrical fault in the building's aging infrastructure. The unofficial truth, the truth I learned only in the final moments of my first life, was that the fire was set deliberately. Because the records office contained the original procurement files, and those files contained the evidence that Nadine had been trying to show me. Someone had decided that the evidence needed to disappear, and the most efficient way to make evidence disappear is to burn the building it's stored in, preferably with the field commander whose name is on every document inside it. The fire spread fast, too fast for a building with standard safety systems. The exits were blocked, not by debris, but by locks that had been engaged from outside. I know this because I tried every door and every window on the ground floor, and none of them opened. Celia was gone. She'd left the records office 10 minutes before the fire started, saying she needed to make a call. She was outside when the building went up. I was inside. Nadine was also there, at the compound, at 11 o'clock at night, because she'd been monitoring the compound for 3 weeks, following a trail that I now know started with intercepted communications between Celia's family attorney and a building contractor who specialized in infrastructure modification. She'd been watching the compound the same way she'd watched me at the academy, from the edges, from the shadows, seeing everything. And when the building caught fire with me inside it and every exit locked, she broke through a service window, climbed in, and found me in the hallway choking on smoke. She got me 30 feet toward the window before the ceiling collapsed. But the beam hit her back. She went down over me, not beside me, over me, her body between mine and the burning wreckage. I could feel the heat through her. I could hear her breathing change, the sharp, wet sound of lungs filling with something that wasn't air. And from outside the building through the broken window, I heard Celia's voice, talking to someone, calm, measured, the voice she used when she was managing a situation. "Is it done?" 3 words. And then I understood everything, the contracts, the financial network, the letter I'd shown to the person who was stealing from me. The visit I'd reported that gave them the warning they needed. The fire that was meant to destroy the evidence and the man whose name was on it. Nadine was still breathing, barely. She was pressing down on me with everything she had left. And the beam across her back was on fire, and she was looking at me with eyes that were losing focus but hadn't lost intensity. The same eyes that had watched me across refectories and training fields and command offices for 15 years. "I told you," she whispered. "I was trying." She stopped breathing 40 seconds later. I stopped breathing 11 minutes after that, when the smoke became too much and the fire consumed the corridor. I woke up at the academy, 18 years old, selection gala in 3 months, Now we're back in the present. The gala, the podium, the silence, Nadine's name in the ledger. The room is processing. 300 people are recalibrating their assumptions about Cadet Ashford, who just threw away the obvious optimal choice for the woman everyone avoids. Celia approaches me. Of course she does. Miss, she's not going to let this happen without an intervention. Because in this timeline, in this life, she has no reason to suspect that I know anything. To her, I'm the same Ashford she's been cultivating for 3 years, the same useful partner, the same brand-ready engine. Ashford? Her voice is perfectly modulated, warm concern layered over strategic assessment. Can we talk, privately? We can talk here. She glances at the crowd. She doesn't want an audience, but she adjusts. Celia always adjusts. I'm just concerned. Nadine Voss has a documented history Of what, Celia? Of interpersonal issues. You know the reports, the boundary violations, the confrontation with the officer, the confrontation with an officer who gave her partner an unfairly low evaluation, which was later reviewed and corrected. Of the boundary violations that consisted of monitoring a partner's training schedule and correcting tactical errors. The interpersonal issues that amount to a woman paying too much attention to the people she works with. Celia's mask holds, but behind it, something is moving. The same measuring quality I saw in her eyes at the beginning. She's not upset. She's assessing how much I know and whether this is a problem or a manageable deviation. I'm just looking out for you, she says. I know exactly what you're looking out for.